Hi everyone, my name is Carrie Cardamone and I work at Tufts Center for the Enhancement of Learning and Teaching, or CELT. Today I want to walk through a very brief demo thinking about the uses of AI as a professor teaching a class in spring 2024. This is an update of something we did in August 2023, but in the last 4 months, the systems and our knowledges of how to effectively use them have significantly evolved. So please note that you won't have time to read everything that we'll put in the demo, but I want to walk you through and talk about some of the ways that you or your students may be interacting with the systems today. We'll share a link later to view some of the output, so you can read some of the output of the systems yourself. As we go through this demo, we'll talk about some of the things ChatGPT can do well and ways to use that are more effective. But let's start with the biggest concern I hear from faculty. What if a student asks generative AI to do their homework? So here's our first prompt. Please write a short 100-word discussion board post for a college lit class, addressing the prompt, identifying some important themes in Douglas Adams Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy that relate to your own life or experience. These models will always do what they're asked to, but they won't always do it well. And the output can vary widely depending on which system you're using. This 3.5 is now surpassed by other systems, some of which are paid behind paywalls, but it's a good place to learn about how to interact with AI, and in particular, exploring ways to use it. Now, we got a response here. The theme of absurdity resonates deeply with my own life. But don't assume that what you're seeing here is representative of AI-generated responses in general, not only because these models' capacities are changing, sometimes on the time scale of weeks, but even if you put the same prompt into the same system, it will generate a different response. And if you go to a different system, so here I'm going to go to Google Bard, using my personal Gmail account because my Tufts account doesn't have AI Bard access at the moment. And I'm getting a completely different response with a different tone. In Hitchhiker's Guide, Arthur Dent stumbles through the absurd, clinging to towels and philosophical musings. Like Arthur, I often feel like a clueless hitchhiker. The tone of this language is different than the tone over here in ChatGPT 3.5. In either case, this kind of output is that is most likely to be captured in any sort of AI detector, but I don't recommend using these systems because they are so frequently inaccurate. There are biased false detections, more likely to pick up language written by students who are learning English as a second language or those who might be on the spectrum, and it misses many, many examples of AI-generated output, and in particular, AI-generated output that is not just giving the system the prompt like this. Theoretically, because of how AI generates text and how humans generate text or write, they're never going to be a reliable way to detect AI output. So let's move away from thinking about AI as a tool that we're going to have independently do something. The context we give these systems are key to what they're generating. They're not a great search engine, and they're not a great way to create something independently from the user. If we can transition our thinking about them as an assistant to help get much better output. So let's step back, and rather than asking AI to complete our goal, let's begin with a conversation. I'm going to use 4.0 for this. I'm using the one through OpenAI, but we have a version of this through Bing that I will show in a little bit that you can use with your Tufts sign-in. So here we go. I'm going to give it a different prompt. And I'm going to start in a conversational tone because these systems like conversational tones. They respond better. And I'm going to talk to this AI system like it's a peer in the class. And I'm going to leave it with a question. I'm getting confused at times. I think there are important references to other works of literature or British culture that I'm missing. Can you identify one or two of these? And of course, I've asked it a question. It's going to respond and pull up some information in response. We have no way of knowing where this information is coming from, right? How it is generating it. So one way to try to constrain that is to have ChatGPT interact directly with the text. I'm going to demo that by uploading a 4-page excerpt from a chapter in Hitchhiker's Guide, and then I'm going to give it a prompt specifically referring to those 4 pages. I'm struggling with this excerpt. Please read the attached PDF and identify whether the passage contains any significant metaphors, similes, allegory, personification, ellipses, or alliteration. And now it's going to base its generated response not on what happens to be in the system from its training that might refer to this book, A Hitchhiker's Guide, but the actual text that I just gave it. And it's going to respond. It's going to give me some metaphors, personifications, alliteration, and ellipses. And it might do this better or worse in some ways than another. But it's going to give me some responses to think about if I'm looking for these things myself. Can also, in response to all these prompts, the text being generated from an AI model focuses on tokens that tie to words or portion of words, and it's optimized to produce something that sounds like a good response. It doesn't have a model of knowledge or facts that it's searching from specific sources. This is why it's not a good search engine. It will state ideas that are true and ones that are not, these so-called hallucinations, without any way for the system to differentiate between them. And although models have gotten exponentially better at minimizing hallucinations, if I want help finding a specific piece of information, there are better ways to use AI. So for this, I'm going to just switch over to Microsoft's Bing or Copilot. It's changing names daily. And this is also going to draw on ChatGPT 4.0. I'm signed into this one through my Tufts account. And I'm going to ask it, why did Douglas Adams use the number 42 in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy? This is an actual question. And now, instead of just generating the text directly, it's going to start with a search. And so it's going to base some of its textual response on what it finds on the internet. And the real bonus here is that there's going to be citations or links to where this information is coming from. Now, just because it says this information is coming from a site called Mental Floss, I would want to go there and verify that it's giving it to me. But I can look at and evaluate now the sources of the information. And for example, one of the sources that it's giving me information from is Scientific American. That's something that I generally trust. And so I can click on this link, see where it's finding the information, and see, oh, wow, here's an article that perfectly answers the question I had. For math fans, A Hitchhiker's Guide to the number 42. And so I have some confidence in the information I'm getting here. AI wasn't the source of the answer, but it wasn't just the source of the answer, but it was a good connector to information around it. There are also AI systems that are specifically designed, tied to databases of academic journals or within disciplines, and those will be better at returning specific information or being searched for references. So let's go back to our window here and just keep chugging along. What are some uses that faculty and students are finding systems like ChatGPT effective in doing? One thing is lowering a barrier to get started. So for example, if a student is nervous or has anxiety about starting a new project or posting to a discussion board, they're brand new to Tufts, they're brand new to college, and they don't want to just post their ideas. They want some sort of reassurance first. Here I've modeled giving it a prompt saying a little bit of information about me. So now I'm thinking about the text and the question that I have, which is how do themes in this text relate to my life? And I'm going to check in with the AI system and get some feedback on my ideas before I share them with a human or post them to the class discussion board. Do you think that this kind of relates to Arthur Dent's experience? Could you take on the role of my professor and offer me feedback about the idea? So now you put ChatGPT in the specific way you would like the responses, and you'll get a very supportive, in this case, response, sort of exploring some of the ideas that I shared or I started with. Another way to use this type of system is for writing feedback. In particular, language is at the core of the models of these systems. And a lot of students and others who might not speak English as their first language find it useful for feedback. I often have typos. I find it very useful for feedback. So what I'm going to give the system now is a prompt that is asking it to be a writing tutor, right? And I'm going to ask it specifically to look at the discussion board prompt and a text that I'm going to give it and ask it to identify errors in grammar, spelling, and writing, and not to rewrite it themselves, not to have the system rewrite it, but provide a list of suggestions. I really like using ChatGPT for writing in this way because it gives me a chance to decide what are things that I want to adapt and what are things that I don't. Look, I've forgotten the apostrophe and I, that I just definitely want to put in, but maybe I like small little Hamlet instead of small Hamlet. So things like that. Another use for ChatGPT or for various systems that professors have found is that it can help you coming up with teaching materials. It's great for creating case studies, multiple choice questions. I'm going to ask it in this case to come up with a rubric for this discussion board post. I'm telling it I'm a professor of this class. It has all the context of the discussions, the example post that I, as a student, wrote. And now I'm going to ask it to suggest a simple rubric to a total of 10 points. What's really important here is I'm telling the system that students practicing effective writing techniques and relating ideas of the book to their own life are two things I want this rubric to target. The output that you're going to get is going to depend on the input. If you give the system better instructions, or if you ask it to iterate on something it's produced in particular ways, you're going to get output that is more like what you are interested in. So here it does, it gives me a rubric. Now I might not like this breakdown. I might say, grammar and mechanics and clarity and structure should only be 2 points total or all of that. And I can iterate back and forth with this, but it's nice in that it gives me something to work with to start. Now, if you have students using the system, you might want to encourage them to cite their use, what system they used and how. You can also ask for complete transcripts, and I'm going to get a copy of one of those to share with you so you can see the transcript of my interactions here. But it can also be helpful to have AI summarize the interaction. So if you're going to get full transcripts, you might not have time to look at full transcripts of all your students' interactions. And so they're nice for a reference, but it's great to have just a short paragraph. And you can see in this, the system itself is trying to summarize that it provided feedback on the draft discussion board post, it focused on grammar clarity and depth of personal connection, and it created a simple rubric. So you get a sense of that. Overall, I can use this link here to share with my professor or turn in with my assignments so somebody else can read the full description. This was a really quick overview of some of the ways that you might want to start thinking about ChatGPT. As you can see, all of these different systems, whether you're interacting with it through Microsoft Bing and your Tufts account, through Bard, or many other free systems online, they can do a variety of different things. The trick is trying to understand for our students and for our courses, what are helpful uses of this and what are not. And so if you're thinking about getting started with this, a place to start is this really helpful Screen Steps AI in Teaching user guide from Educational Technology. And they have updated here AIs you can use with your system and some suggestion of different places to go to think about that. CELT itself has some information to think about in terms of using AI, but in particular, I want to highlight developing syllabus statements for AI as you start to think about how are students using it, how might I want to use it, what might I want to do. And there are examples from other Tufts faculty on this website. Thank you all for joining me, and I hope you have a wonderful spring semester.